What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fan of Life channel, Fan of Life show podcast, your weekly dose of hopefully inspiration, a little bit of comedy or ironic comedy from me and my fumbling. But this week, hope you guys have had a great last week. I wanted to kind of check in as we go towards the end of January already. And before we know it, mark my words, I'll be hanging up those Christmas trees and putting up my snowman once again. But not getting ahead of ourselves, I just wanted to kind of chat really quick. Today's podcast is going to be another monologue. And I put some time into thinking about a couple of things over the last few weeks as we get into this new year. And I want to share with you guys and get your thoughts on this. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is the three phases in life. I think the biggest questions people always have is, what's the point of life? What's my purpose in life? And I will tell you right now, this is not the podcast to answer any of that because I don't know. And honestly, I don't think we do know. But today's conversation, I hope to kind of break it down into three phases, three segments that could maybe help you guys make sense of it all a little bit more and give you some direction and where you want to head it so that the trajectory of your life becomes as fulfilling as possible. And I think at the end of the day, that's all we can really do is hopefully live the life that is purpose-driven, and we leave something or a piece of us behind when we're gone. Okay. It's kind of like that movie Saving Private Ryan. If you guys have seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, and no spoilers because it's been out for like 20 years, but at the end where I believe Officer Ryan, is old and what have you, he turns to his wife and he just asks his wife, have I lived a good life? Because so many people have sacrificed to bring him back to safety. And I think that question resonates pretty much with all of us. At the end of the day, we want to live a life that is well lived, that was worth living, that even is worth documenting and worth recording. And when I say that, I don't mean you have to be the big grandiose character, or you don't have to be somebody that's going to go down the history books. But the reality is, I think we all want to feel a sense that our life was meant for something, even if it was impactful just within our realm of influence and our friends and family. And I think people undervalue and underestimate the impact that can actually have. I mean, you positively change someone's life, their course, their trajectory. You never know what that ripple effect is, because that person can go on and change someone else's life that can impact hundreds of people. Those hundreds of people can go out and impact thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions. You really just don't know. So at the end of the day, if you can live a life that is impactful, that is of service, I think that's a key factor in feeling fulfilled or finding fulfillment in your life. Before I dive into it, though, excuse the casualness of today's podcast if you guys are watching on YouTube, but I wanted to just get a podcast out because my commitment is, the weekly podcast. But the reason why I'm kind of casual today, because I came straight from my morning cold dip in my pool. I want to sidebar and talk to you guys about that really quick. You can research all the benefits of doing cold showers, cold plunges, and all that stuff on your own. But I do say it is something that's very, very positive and very good for your body. But the thing that I want to kind of talk to you about today about that sidebar is, man, how quickly we resort back to what we believe is our baseline. And what I mean by that is this: using the cold plunges. My pool right now is about 40 degrees, so it's cold. So anyway, about a year and a half ago, I really got into cold plunging. So it was a morning ritual. I would dive in my pool, and then when it got warm, I would do ice baths and what have you. But over this last year, I slipped away from it. So I didn't really stay consistent with it. And pretty much I fell off of it for most of 2021. So, as the new year came about, I committed to redoing this or getting back into this and doing this as a consistent, daily routine. And I will tell you, even within I want to say 6 to 7 months of not doing it, my body no longer is acclimated. Like I jump in or I go in and my feet hurt, my hand hurt. And it wasn't that long ago when really it was nothing. You really can zone out and just be numb and just be in the moment and embrace that that pressure and embrace that cold. But my point to telling you this story is, man, it's very, very easy to go back to what you believe is your baseline, because success, overachievement, or anything that puts you in a one percenter type of scenario, those things have to constantly be exercised, be practiced, because like the old saying goes, man, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's mind-boggling how fast you lose it too. So whichever that applies, this scenario or this comparison applies in your life, whether it's physical fitness, whether it's reading, whether it's relationships. Just remember, guys, if you don't actively continue to control your baseline will always go back to the least amount of resistance. So if you want to be mentally strong, you want to be sharp in your mind, you want to be healthy in your body, you want to be, great in your relationships, all these things have to actively be pursued, practiced, and honed in really on a daily basis. So anyway, that's a sidebar from what I wanted to talk about today. So going back to, I think, the topic of the day, I want to talk to you guys about what I believe is the three phases of life, and where people get stuck. And we'll elaborate on that in just a few. But I think no matter where you are, and I can only speak really for the Western world, because I do understand and know that underdeveloped worlds, war-torn countries that are oppressed, it's a totally different scenario, a totally different circumstance on what you have to fight out of. So that's another topic for another day. But let's just take the general public right now in the Western world, right? Regardless if you're born into our version of poverty or born into wealth, all babies are born with the natural desire, natural fight to survive. In other words, we try to catch our first breath. We learn to crawl, walk, run, jump. All these things are hardwired in us because it's part of our survival mechanism. And I think what happens in the developed Western world is that we sometimes get stuck and we never go beyond survival. And then somewhere along the way, we become, we become trapped in the survival mode of society, meaning that now you're stuck paying your bills. Now you're stuck wondering where, you're going to get money for XYZ, whether it's food, whether it's clothes on your back, whether it's taking care of your kids. And I understand these things are real because I know plenty of people that have struggled to survive, to maintain. But what I want to point out is that if you ever feel that you are constantly in survival mode, and it comes really easy verbalizing it, and I know it's harder to do, is you have to prioritize your daily actions so that it leads you out of the survival mode, because nothing great can come from survival. When you're desperate, it's very difficult to be a life enhancer. When you're desperate, it's very difficult to be creative, to be blissful, to be happy. So my hope for anybody is you got to figure out a way to get out of that. So again, reflecting on and applying this to the modern Western world, as adults, being stuck in survival mode typically means you don't have enough resources financially. You're constantly getting by, you're making ends meet barely, you have more month than money. So it comes down to, you have to prioritize, how is it that you're going to make more, spend less, make more, spend less. You cannot make more, spend more, because then now you're still at zero, but now with the pressure of keeping up. Okay. And we see it throughout, our addiction to consumerism. I know plenty of people in their life right now, my peer group that's ranging from 30 to 50 years old, a lot of them in their 40s, my friends and family, that are probably making the most income they have ever made in their entire life, right? But are still struggling to make ends meet, still struggling day by day, check by check. And I do realize that the cost of living has gone up drastically over the last 24 months, inflation, what have you. That's another topic for another day. But what I want to point out, if we're going to pinpoint this time in history, I want you to recognize that yes, cost of living is going up, but there has never been a moment in human history where it's as easy to achieve financial independence or for you to make additional money above and beyond what you're doing now traditionally from a job. And I'm a testament to that. I know friends and family, my inner circle, people that have made secondary, third, fourth, fifth, six, seven streams of income because of this magic thing called technology, right? Unfortunately, for most of us, we get trapped in this technology of pleasure, of distraction, of trying to numb ourselves from the real world. And we get lost in, thumbing through social media for hours, scanning, all the streaming services for movies and TV shows, all while we can use that same technology for education, for self-education, for reaching out, connecting with people of value, with people of knowledge, to learn and enhance yourself, to build tools around technology that can help you create a secondary, third, fourth, fifth source of income. And what I want you guys to realize is that no matter how tough you believe your life is right now financially in the Western developed world, I can only speak to us, specifically in America, you have to recognize that you have tools that entrepreneurs from 50 years ago, 100 years ago would have given their left arm to have. You have the power of literally access to information instantaneously. You have access to connect with people instantaneously. These are the tools that can be utilized to help you figure out what you need to do above and beyond your standard job so that you can make more money and more income. Because without that, you'll never get out of the survival mode. Guys, we're in 2022. Saber-toothed tigers aren't chasing us anymore, okay? So those are not the fears for survival. The fear for survival is, how do you make rent? How do you pay your mortgage? How do you keep food in the fridge and clothes on your kid's back? And all those things center around making more money. There's nothing wrong with speaking that out loud. There's nothing wrong with saying that's what you desire, because reality is that's what you need. Okay. Don't have bad connotations about making or wanting to make more money. You got to make sure you do that. So step one is recognizing and figuring out, am I in the survival mode of life? Because if you are, your first priority before anything that is grandiose, you got to get out of that phase. You got to make sure that your daily, monthly, yearly needs are met and are met comfortably. Because once you no longer have the stress of bills, the stress of finances, your creativity, your desire to go out and better yourself, your desire to go out and touch people, and your desire to go out and meet people, your desire to basically enhance the position of your life increases, because now you have the time, the resources, and the mental capacity to do it. So the first phase of life is survival. Literally when you're a baby, and figuratively / literally when you're an adult as well, get out of that rat race and make sure you sustain yourself comfortably so that you can move on to the next phase. Now you're no longer in survival. You go into what I call thriving, the second phase of life. And this is where things become fun, because once the bills aren't constantly in your mind, and once the obligations of finances are no longer weighing heavy on your spirit and your mind, your soul, you will have the desire to go out there and thrive. And thriving means bettering yourself, making you a better version of who you are. I run into people sometimes and they say, man, you're different. You're not the same guy that I knew 20 years ago, 15 years ago. We don't have the same conversations anymore. And I find that as a compliment, because we're meant to evolve. We're not meant to stay the same. Whether that person that said that to me meant it as a compliment or not, I take it as a compliment, because you are supposed to evolve. And the only time you can evolve is if you're in that thriving phase of your life. So once you're in there, I think this is where the fun happens, man. This is where the money comes in because now you're free to think, take chances, and be around people that can enhance that. This is where your emotional capacity, your growth for empathy, your understanding of humans, your understanding of technology, your desire to seek out new information really happens in this phase of your life. And this is where you start to evolve and become who you potentially can be or who you are destined to be. It's very difficult to be your full potential when you're barely making it, when you're just worrying about survival. So once you're in the thriving phase of your life, you look back 5 years, 10 years, you go, holy heck, I've done quite a bit. I've traveled these many places. I've met these many people. I've learned this many skills. Now you get to go into the next phase of your life. And the most important phase, in my personal opinion, the phase that I'm personally at 45 chasing. And that phase is contribution. That phase is giving value, giving back. That phase is touching society. And what I mean by that is now that finances are no longer an issue, you're not stressed about bills. And now that you've gone through the evolution of who you're meant to be, you gain this knowledge, you gain these skill sets, you gain these financial resources, it's time to give back. It's time to play contribution. It's time to live the rest of your life, figure out how you can do better for others and for the things that are important to you. And this is where fulfillment comes in, guys, because I tell you right now, I have been around a lot of rich people, and money truly does not buy happiness. All it does, it gives you a level of comfort. Okay. So I know a lot of people that are thriving in business and making a lot of money, but they're stuck in this stage and they don't know how to break out of it because they're not seeking to go beyond that. They're not seeking for contribution. And I'll tell you right now, man, if you don't have contribution in your life, if you're not doing something that is bigger than just yourself and just your needs, it's very hard to find fulfillment. It's easy to find comfort, but you know what else is a result of comfort? It's boredom. And boredom sucks. I don't care how much money you have in the bank, boredom sucks. So if you want a life of fulfillment, a life that is worth living, a life that's worth writing down, worth documenting, worth sharing, you got to base your life around contribution. And those that I find do this and do this well are some of the most fulfilled and happy people I know, regardless of their bank account. And then this is my own personal experience that I promise that you feel as well too. So for me, I'm not a wealthy guy. My wife and I have done well, especially over the last few years, that we're in a position where finances, bills are not an issue. And the last couple of years, I've really dug in my heels into learning, becoming a better person, trying to evolve. And my hope and my prayer for my personal life is that at age 45, the remaining days of my life is continue to thrive, sure, but mostly focus on contribution because I want more, man. And it's not about the bigger houses or the fast cars. The more that I'm seeking for is the more value. And the only way for me to bring more value into my life is if I contribute more. And that is my hope and my perspective that I want to share with you. So hopefully you can see the world a little bit different. So just to recap before I wrap up this podcast, you know, again, my articulation, I'm not the smoothest, right? I hope you guys can see through, me trying to make sense of all this and doing it in real time with you. But I hope you guys get that concept down is that the three phases in life, wherever that may be for you or however that's defined for you, it comes in survival mode, right? It comes in thriving, and then it comes into contribution. And somewhere I think in the third phase of life, the contribution life is where you truly find the answer of what does this all mean? What is my life for? What does it come down to the meaning of life in general? I think for each and one of us, it's going to be different, but I think we find it in contribution. It's hard to find it when you're struggling and just trying to survive. I think the only time you truly define what your life's meanings and purpose are is when you are contributing. So I hope you guys get this concept. Let me know what you think. Again, options, guys. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching this, I apologize for the lack of professionalism. Got my hair hat on today. Came straight from the pool. But please subscribe, support, and bring on some fellow listeners. Until next time, guys, go after it. Remember, a life worth living is a life worth writing down. Journal, record some of your memories, your activities, and a life worth living is a life of contribution. So anyway, that's enough of my soapbox preaching for the day. Until next time, guys, next week we'll have a special guest on. Looking forward to it. Talk to you guys soon. Signing off.